Welcome to Tent Talk, the podcast with Nancy McCready, where we talk about life under the big tent of God's presence and the provoking process of discipleship. Here we go.
Hey everybody, I am so glad to be back with you with this Here We Go episode from the Contra apartment, and we are on the outskirts of Rybnik, Poland. And if you're listening in real time, this is Friday, July 24th, I think. Sometimes you lose track of the days as you just go from one day to the next. And we are, in a very glad-hearted way, putting in about 12-hour days and being able to be with groups 1, 2, and 3 here in Oxford, Europe. And may I say that the previous day was stellar. Absolutely, staggeringly amazing. And yet, I'm not really able to share much of it with you because it's one of those days that is a bit more private in the process for those who are choosing to simply continue on with the Father, but it's oftentimes the manner in which it's happening, the depth to which it's happening, and it just can't always be communicated, nor does it even necessarily need to be. But I do want to mark it by saying that it was a privilege to be a part of what was happening yesterday in that quiet, under-the-radar kind of way. And yet I know that the Father's heart must be seriously delighted. And continuing on in today, which is our last full day here with Oxford, Europe, and we will set out on Saturday in the early afternoon to head into Krakow. And then we will catch our late evening flight out of Krakow and will ultimately find our way to London, then down into Portsmouth, and probably won't get checked into my next home until midnight or a bit after, Saturday night UK time. So I look forward already to being with you in our next episode, where I'll be in my new home and can catch you up on some things along with the summer reading series. Today, in this episode, I want to read chapter 14 out of the green letters. It's on the process of discipleship. And here we go. In the parable of the sower, the seed sown on good ground are they which in an honest and good heart, having heard the word, keep it and bring forth fruit with patience. Luke 8:15. The principle of growth is always first the blade, then the ear, after that the full corn in the ear. Mark 4:28. Therefore, the husbandman waiteth for the precious fruit of the earth, and hath long patience for it. James 5:7. As this clearly exemplifies, quote, he that believeth shall not make haste, close quote, from Isaiah 28:16. For most of us, it has been a long season of growth from the tiny green blade up to the full corn in the ear. So many seek to settle for this stage, saved, with heaven assured, plus a pacifying measure of Christian respectability, at least in church circles. Here we have the believer as a normal kernel of wheat, containing life inside a more or less shiny golden covering, in fellowship high up on the stalk with similar kernels of wheat. This is but a stage, not the goal. And, like middle age, this can be a dangerous stage, one of seeking a much-deserved rest, of basking aimlessly in the fellowship of meetings, classes, etc., of ignoring or forgetting the struggles and growing pains of the tiny green blades down at one's feet, and expecting and exhorting them to just shape up and mature without delay. This is all very cozy, but costly, snug, but sterile. The seed corn may be beautiful, but it is hard. The germ of life is locked up within its shell and cannot get out. Therefore, it produces nothing. Here is the reason why so many Christians, even preachers, are so unfruitful. Only one here and there is a soul winner. When the grain of corn is buried, it dies, and that hard exterior surface softens and decays in order to give nutriment to the young sprout, which would otherwise die and thus cause a crop failure. One must reckon himself dead to the hard, cold, selfish I before the softening influence of the Holy Spirit can operate, qualifying the believer in the service of God. Many want to do God's work, but are unable because of the flesh in their lives. Our Father understands all this, and He it is who takes the initiative in the matter. He drops the seed of dissatisfaction into our hearts. He begins to show us that there is far more to this Christian life than just being saved and active for Him, and it is necessary for Him to engineer our exchange from carnal Christians to fruitful, fellowshipping disciples. From an infinite number of ways, He chooses the most effective for each individual's transition. And in the hand of the husbandman, there is no fear, but freedom. We often come across Christians who are bright and clever, and strong and righteous. In fact, a little too bright and a little too clever. There seems so much of self in their strength, and their righteousness is severe and critical. They have everything to make them saints, except crucifixion, which would mold them into a supernatural tenderness and limitless charity for others. But if they are of the real elect, God has a winepress prepared for them, through which they will someday pass, which will turn the metallic hardness of their nature into gentle love, which Christ always brings forth at the last of the feast. Another parable put He forth unto them, saying, The kingdom of heaven is likened unto a man which sowed good seed in his field. He that soweth the good seed is the Son of Man. The field is in the world. The good seed are the children of the kingdom. Matthew 13:24, 37, and 38a. The Lord of the harvest plants, buries Christians as seeds in a field, which is the world. Through the husbandman's patient and loving cultivation, the grain of wheat high up on the stalk begins to fear being garnered alone, and hungers to bring forth much fruit. Here is God's motivation for discipleship, that filial heart hunger for fruit bearing. He finally pleads to be made fruitful at any cost, and then it is that he hears the Lord say, Verily, verily, I say unto you, except a corn of wheat fall into the ground and die, it abideth alone. But if it die, it bringeth forth much fruit. John 12:24. Mark 8:35 says, Whosoever shall lose his life for my sake, and the gospel's the same, shall save it. In loving response to this hunger, the Holy Spirit silently and gently begins to loosen the grain from its comfortable bindings and supports in the kernel. Mark 4:29 says, When the fruit is brought forth, immediately he putteth in the sickle, because the harvest is come. As a result, sooner or later the grain of wheat finds itself not high up on the stalk, but dropped to the earth, into the cold and strange darkness. And still worse, The earth smears and injures that nice, shiny, golden coat. Worst of all, the coat begins to disintegrate and fall to pieces. All that is not Christ, no matter how nice in appearance and profession, is revealed for what it is, just self. There is a further stripping, right down to the germ of life, right on down until there is nothing left but Christ, who is our life. Down, down into death. Patience, grain of wheat. Though he slay me, yet will I trust in him. Job 13:15. Except it fall into the ground and die. Can much fruit come alone at such a cost? Must the seed corn be buried in the earth, all summer joy and glory seemingly lost? He buries still his seed corns here and there, and calls to deeper fellowship with him, those who will dare to share the bitter cup, and yet while sharing, sing the triumph hymn. Except it fall into the ground and die? But what a harvest in the days to come, when fields stand thick with golden sheaves of corn, and you are sharing in the harvest home. To you who lose your life and let it die, yet in the losing find your life anew. Christ evermore unveils his lovely face, and thus his mirrored glory rest on you. Poem selected. When the believer takes up his cross for discipleship, the process of death begins to set in. The disciple finds himself a seed sown by the sun, planted in a home, office, hospital, church, manse, or mission station. Whatever or wherever it is, there will be the death from which resurrection life follows. For we which live are always delivered unto death for Jesus' sake, that the life also of Jesus might be made manifest in our mortal flesh. So then death worketh in us, but life in you. 2 Corinthians 4:11 and 12. We need to enter deeply into the truth that Christ, the beloved Son of the Father, could not enter to the glory of heaven until he had first given himself over to death. And this great truth, as it opens to us, will help us to understand how in our life and in our fellowship with Christ, it is impossible for us to share his life until we have first, in very deed, surrendered ourselves every day to die to sin and self and the law and the world, and so to abide in the unbroken fellowship of discipleship with our crucified and risen Lord. P.S. All the truths we have learned about the cross, of our death with Christ, our death unto sin with him, of our conformity to death, like the corn of wheat falling into ground to die, are preparatory to the overcoming life. They are the foundation of and fundamental to it. My friends, you would do well to pick up this book and read that chapter, re-listen to it here, and let Holy Spirit be the one who instructs you in it. Do not take Christian lessons from the devil. For when flesh and self begin to foam at the mouth with fear, because it's their death, it's you coming forward into life. But when we fear that we are going to die and we're going to have nothing, well, you'll have him. And you will live as probably you have longed to. Did you catch that part in there? There is something that begins to stir ever so deep, this deep hunger for him, for fruit bearing, for more. But then the decision comes is then, Father, you lead me. You lead me forward in your way. You see, if we're going to live like Christ, then let us be willing to live like him. Oftentimes what we think is, I'm going to do the works of Jesus. Well, there won't be any works of Jesus if there's no living like him, which is to let the Father lead you in his way. For they have an amazing way of bringing forward life. At some point, my friends, don't you get tired of the tyranny of self and fear, the way it grips you, controls you, frightens you, scares you, torments you, tortures you, and yet you continue to let it be your master. You see, when you are born again, you now get to decide who will be your master. As you move through your day, you get to decide. And if you decide to put yourself back into the yoke of slavery, according to Galatians 5:1, then you've put yourself under, even though initially it will promise you none of that radical stuff, right? I'll protect you from all that. That's just too extreme, right? But then eventually it keeps you small and in torment. So think about these things, Selah. Pause and calmly think about this with Holy Spirit. What is it? What is this gripping fear? It is the same as Adam when God came walking into the garden and he hid and he blamed God. Now, do you see ever so clearly the nature of sin and flesh and self? It fears the true presence of God. But this cannot be said of us who are his sons, the ones whom he has come for, the ones whom he loves. He seeks to deliver you from that which tortures and traps you. Let him bring you forward, so that discipleship, which is sonship, which is sons maturing and living unto the Father, living as you were meant to live. So think about that. And I pray that this has been an encouragement to you today. So as I get up and get ready to go, I thank you for being on this Here We Go episode with me, straight from Poland. And we will talk soon and continue to read together.
For more information on Nancy, please visit nancymccready.com or follow her on social media at NBMcCready.